Good evening, and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And tonight we'll be returning to actually two of our favorite subjects, the creative arts and public service, and how in fact they can combine. Our guest tonight is Barb Sorensen, singer-songwriter, and let's call you a community activist as well. Barb, welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So let's start with your actual profession, which is singer-songwriter.
Singer-songwriter.
And that's a hard road to take. It's hard to make a living as an artist, and you've done it for a long time, so you've been very successful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how did you make the choice to follow that path?
Oh my. I graduated from college with a degree in chemistry, and
That should qualify you
right.
as a singer-songwriter.
And I was playing baritone saxophone with the pep band and the jazz band in college, and I just loved music. I didn't want to study it. I just wanted to play it, and so I was playing with a rock and blues band outside after college hours, outside whatever, and commuting every day with a big saxophone on the train and everything. And it came to the point where I decided, you know what? When I'm old and gray, I can do chemistry. You know, science and the industry changes so fast. I can do that. But in the meantime, I can enjoy doing music and all these other things, which I may not be able to carry a baritone saxophone when I'm old and gray. So I decided to do music
I will
instead.
tell you, I carry a bass and amp, and I'm pretty old and gray myself. So it is possible. You can do it.
It's true. And so I decided to, much to the dismay of my parents, to jump into music full time. And it took a bit to do that. For 6 years I worked in a shipping company doing logistics and for the outer ramps. And there was one day that came and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this day. And I had done a lot of research and reading and getting my courage up and talking to other musicians, and like, this is it, I'm going to do it. And I did.
Wow,
And
a leap of faith.
I haven't stopped running. At some point, you jump in the water and go, just swim. You know you can do this, whatever it takes to swim. And you may look like a frog for a while, but it works over time.
And even frogs actually are pretty adept at swimming in their own manner.
True, in their own way. And it works. So.
And I would think, actually, not to go too far down the frog analogy road, but music is very much the same thing. You know, you carve your own path, right? I mean, you do what really appeals to you, what you can do with soulfulness and honesty. And then generally you find that there's an audience for that, right?
There is. It is not the market that makes your product, it's you make the market. You do who you are. You can do no different. You can only be who you are and present it. And there is someone else, at least one, if not more, in this world that can relate to whatever it is that you present.
Yes, there's an audience somewhere. There's an audience for the show we're on right now, right? So there's always an audience waiting to hear what you have to say in song, in theater, in canvas, whatever art you choose, right? So what kind of hurdles did you have to overcome? All artists talk about the struggles of their early life. So
oh my, those are fun.
Yeah.
I've come to view them, as a matter of fact. Today I had another challenge. I'm like, you know what? Thank you, God, for the challenge. You know, because I can practice, you know, applying less things that I've learned on how to handle them. There's three things I found in my career that every time I start a new project, it's always this. At first, everybody kind of goes, yeah, whatever. They don't take you seriously. Mm-hmm. Second, they ridicule you and try to block you. And third, they just magically one day automatically accept that this is who you are, and they've never known you to do anything different, so why would it ever have been a question? They even forget that they ridiculed and blocked and whatnot. They can't even remember any of that, but they just go, oh, this is Barb, let's go see her, you know? And it's maddening sometimes, because you're the ones recognizing all this in them. They don't see themselves doing it.
They're just being careful. They're trying to protect you. Don't make this bad decision.
Right, they love you. They want the best for you, and they don't necessarily know how to do it because they're not doing what you do. Mm-hmm. And they don't know your path, but you know, they see everyone else doing this way and you're going this way, and they're like, I don't get it. So
it's dangerous. You may fail.
Oh my gosh, have I heard it a million times, you know? And you know, if you love what you do and you focus on the positive, things work out well. And
you have to have some talent mixed in there as well, right?
That's true, and some luck. You know, for instance, I was invited to perform at the Kennedy Center in 2004, and you know, I emailed all my siblings. Like, this is really cool, you know, and that was luck and it was talent. I represented the state of Illinois with a special concert there on the Millennium Stage. They have one performer a year from each state that does a concert there and gets invited by the senator up there. And I just sent my stuff in, expecting everybody else sends their stuff in too, and they chose mine. And I was like, wow, this is awesome, you know?
Yeah, that does sound pretty awesome, I have to
Yeah,
say.
you know, and then at the same time, I'm like, well, what other concerts are out there while I'm doing one? Maybe I can do a few more other concerts in the, you know, in the other venues out there. And so I checked around, and they had the White House Christmas tree lighting celebration. And they were accepting, it was applications from artists who want to perform, and they would choose 3 to perform there. And out of over 600 applications, I was one of the 3 that was chosen. And I was like, wow, that, you know, it was incredible luck and talent. You had to submit your music, and they had to like it. So I'm very grateful for that. And then getting back to your question about the challenges involved is, you know, I emailed everyone I knew, my family and everyone. I'm playing at the Kennedy Center. I mean, God, you know, the White House Christmas tree lighting celebration.
Pretty good on your resume, by the way. Those are
Oh
pretty good
yeah,
places.
it's a great feather in your hat. And no one blinked an eye. I sent a message to all the local newspapers, you know, going, oh, small town girl makes good, you know, and not one mention. I'm like, thanks.
Did any of your invitees show up?
No.
Not-
Well, it would
the
mean they'd have to
local,
go
right.
from Illinois to D.C., which,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, it's
at
hard.
the time I wasn't famous enough or important enough to anybody to do something like that. But and then over the years, you know, I've traveled so much internationally that, you know, I found myself in Corsica, and at one of my concerts, these 2 gentlemen came up, and they're like, cool concert, we love that. He said, you know, we found out about you online, and we flew in from New Zealand.
Wow.
I'm like, wow.
That's a long flight.
Wow, thank you. It was so awesome. Yeah, it is a long
Yeah.
flight. And to come to Corsica, which not most people think of to go to for anything but a nice quiet vacation, I was so amazed. I was so, wow, honored.
So do you always perform, solo? Do you pick up other musicians when you're in town? How do you make that work?
I tour mostly as a soloist with my acoustic guitar. Occasionally I will work with other musicians I pick up in town. Like if I see a really cool violinist or harpist or someone, I'll invite and go, hey, let's play together. This is really fun. Let's do something. I do have a group of musicians I pull from back here in the Midwest that tour with some of the most amazing, famous musicians you've ever heard of. And when I can afford to pay them, I hire them.
Yeah.
They are amazing.
There's
I love them
the
very
art side
much.
and the business side of music
Right.
performance,
There's
right?
both sides.
Yes.
And so I love performing with them. I just need to make sure that I can, you know, treat them very well, like they deserve.
Well, and that they'll come back next time you invite them.
That
right?
too. They'll work with me again that way too.
So your genre is mostly, even in your own creations, your own the music that you've written for yourself, is folk. Is it folk oriented? You mentioned classical, or not classical music, but German songs and Christmas
Yes.
songs.
So, you know, the label and the artist thing. You know, artists don't like to label things.
In fact, when we were talking before the show about what kind of music does my band play, I can't really tell you.
Right.
it's what we play.
We
right?
do what who
Yeah,
we
yeah,
are.
yeah.
I did end up weeding through all the lists and names and things that I could call my music, and I ended up, let's just keep it at pop rock, original pop rock. And I also do traditional German folk songs. I am German, and I grew up, that was my first language. And so it's inherent in me, and
It's in the
I love
genes.
to continue the culture and to teach others about the stories and the folklore and the fun, cool thing that, you know, Germany is. And I also perform multicultural lullaby concerts. I have a real interest in working with kids and their upbringing and family and keeping that together. And then I also perform for war reenactments. I do Civil War reenactment concerts and World War I, World War II reenactment concerts.
So these would be the music that would have been popular at the time, correct?
Yes. So Civil War, the songs from America and the North and the South. And then I also include stories and how music has been used in wars and propaganda and all that. Amazing, amazing what we humans do. And
In fact, well, as you know, I mean, music was used to get the troops riled up and get them moving, right? So,
Yeah.
which I think is the most remarkable thing about music, that it touches the emotions so directly in a way that I think is hard to reach with other means of communication. I suppose you could say that about all art, but music in particular makes you move. And there's not a lot of other arts that actually make you want to move your body or tap your feet or snap your fingers. And I think that's remarkable. And is that part of what, when you're performing or when you're telling the stories about music and its place in history, is that something that figures in those stories?
The rhythm?
The fact that music is a different form, fundamentally different form of art from others, and why would it be used in, for example, for soldiers or for armies? You know, I'm not going to show an army a couple of cool paintings. It's not going to have any effect, right?
Yeah.
But music can do that.
They had this most amazing class they were presenting in Berlin, which I really wanted to go to, about using music in wars. I didn't go there, but through my own research, I've gone through the files of the Smithsonian Institute up in DC. They have all kinds of information in music and just sheet music from the really old days. And looking at the lyrics and then knowing human nature and all the experiences I've had with meeting people around the world, going, okay, and you start to learn and go, okay, I get this, and looking at the stories and the textbooks and going, you know, for instance, my parents grew up in Germany and they were little tiny tots when the wars broke out. But the stories I learned from them are quite different than what's presented quite often in the media. Not always, you know, the media presents a lot. I mean, there's so many different stories. My parents is just one perspective, you know, their experience. And so I would look at that growing up and hear all these, you know, and analyze the folk songs from them as my mom would teach me them and listen to their stories. And then as I was going through the Smithsonian records, I was looking, oh, look, you know, Germany was one of the first countries that when they would go to war or march into another country, they would sing. And it wasn't necessarily, initially at least, to, you know, do anything mean or whatever. It was just because back then you didn't have cars, so to march from point A to point B over mountains, through forests and over hills and things, that you need something to keep you going. And so a lot of the German songs are also very straight time.
Keep you marching.
The marching, the walking, the hiking beat, the rhythm. And so the folk songs, and even today, you know, a lot of the songs are very straight. And so they would sing these songs like, dum da da, we're coming to town, we're coming to town, you know, and they
when
marched
Johnny comes marching home again.
Right, you know. So they marched into France, and French are like, hey, this is really cool, listen to them sing. And they're like, wait a minute, you're taking us over. What are you doing? Stop, you know.
Yeah, can't you just give us a concert instead? Right?
It was very unnerving, and I think perhaps from there on, people started recognizing the power of music for more than just entertainment and keeping the spirit going and the, you know, the mind clear and the energy going. It could also be to distract and destroy. And so there's
possibly apocryphal story about when the Romans never were able to take Scotland. They invaded Britain, but they couldn't take Scotland because when they would try to go there, the Scottish had already invented the bagpipes. and they would be coming out of the misty moors with this incredibly eerie, haunting sound, and the Roman soldiers thought they were demons and couldn't fight.
Wow.
So here's a case, and this may be apocryphal, but I love the story so much, I figure it's worth telling.
Well, I believe it. I mean, if I look, you know, with my science background, you know, I look at frequencies and all that, and, you know, everything I've learned about cell phone signals and all the media broadcasting signals and all that, truly, there's an element of science in that as well, that, you know, we all have electrical systems in our body.
And you can reach them, yes.
And we can reach them.
So let's switch gears a little bit. You have an event coming up. And it is, I'm going to have to look at my notes to get this right, the Halloween Techno Zombie Geocache Hunt of 2016. It's a mouthful.
Right.
What's happening? What is that?
So in between my tours, when I come up with these neat things, my brain just puts together science, technology, marketing, music, everything. And voila, I come up with an idea. And this is a custom designed event that I produce here in Palatine, Illinois. The Halloween Techno Zombie Geocache Hunt. There was
Easy for you to say.
Right. There was one day I was sitting, and I was so sick of sitting behind the computer with this digital stuff going, I need real human life. And I realized I'm turning into a techno zombie. This is not good. And then I just kind of laughed about it and started playing with it, and I came up with the idea of a scavenger hunt. Using only digital technology, and I wanted to play with other people in my community, but quite frequently I would go into businesses and they'd be either about just selling or they'd be behind their computer. I'm like, how do I get them to play? and I want to play with you guys. Let's play. Let's have some fun here. It's not
I mean,
just
play games,
work.
not as in play music
Yeah.
necessarily, but just
Right.
playfulness.
Yeah, playfulness. Get that creativity going in the community again, not just strictly work and about selling and everything. And so I thought, let's get the businesses involved. How do I do that? And then, let's get some community service work involved there too. That would be kind of fun, you know. And there were a couple abandoned gas stations in town, and they were full of weeds. And I'm like, well, we could pick those. That would be kind of a fun thing to do, and that would make it look nice and pretty. And so all of a sudden, the whole event just kind of came together. So I wrote up the plan, and I presented it. Last year was the first year.
So how does this work? I mean, you go on a scavenger hunt, but you also do public service while you're out on the hunt?
Yes, so
And
I
you
send the
score
players.
points either way, is that?
Yeah, so all the locations are GPS coordinates. So you need a cell phone and you need some sort of mode of transportation, whether it's a car or bicycle. And there's hints, extra hints that come in the form of video snippets or sound bites or texts or whatnot. And you just go around to find your GPS coordinate. And when you get into the first location, or each location, they have some sort of interactive activity for you to do. Whether, I can't tell you this year, but last year, Jewel had them restock the shelves, and if they didn't do it right, they'd have to do it again. Dr. Pyzik, the Palatine chiropractor, had them straighten up the place, which fell in line with the theme of what he was doing. Sherry Dunwoody's State Farmers Insurance Agency. Get this right.
Maybe she's got all three by now. You never know.
Right, you know. She was set up with a table, just plain old paper and crayons, and the verbal hint that accompanied the GPS coordinates was your best insurance in life is being gentle and kind, something like that. And so they have to come in and draw a greeting card with a positive message to somebody, something uplifting and kind, and go out onto the street and hand it to someone, come back, get their passport book stamped, get their next clue, and they're off. And
cool. So it's just like random acts of kindness.
Random act of kindness kind of thing. And then some of the community service work that I had them do last year included like a rake and run. Go to this person's
Run with a rake behind you?
Right. Yeah, they would pick up a rake as one of their items connected to a clue for their next location, and then when they find their location, it could be like an old person's house that couldn't rake their leaves.
Right.
So they'd have to fill up a plastic bag with leaves, and that would be their entrance ticket into the evening concert and award celebration.
How cool.
Yes.
So how did you come up with all these ideas, and how did you talk the businesses into going along with this?
They all want to play. They love to play, and it's community oriented, which makes it so much fun. It's like, come on, this is cool. This is just get out and do something fun for one day a year, to not sell anyone anything that is sent into your business. Just play with them, whether it's terrifying them by scaring them to death, or doing something fun and silly, or messy, or memorable in some other way, magical. Dress up, have fun with this. There's a few other Halloween events that would go on in Palatine. They were scattered and disconnected. And I thought, well, let's tie everyone together.
So have other municipalities reached out to you and say, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Can you do that in my town?
Well, this is our second year. I've had one other village go, hey, that's really cool. I think we might be talking to you next year. I'm like, okay. But so far, I don't know if the other villages have heard about it or not. We are doing a big marketing push this year for it, so everybody knows it's happening, and we started in January already, and so.
But best to get a few runs under your belt before you start rolling it out. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. We have the whole plan is nicely detailed and very well structured and very smooth in operation. Pretty much everything is covered.
So I take it you don't actually perform during this thing. This is.
I perform at the awards celebration in the evening.
All right. Yeah. But during the day, you're kind of keeping an eye on things and being the general manager.
During the way, I run from business to business and say, you got enough clues for the next people? You need anything? This is how it's going. This is what's going on. And we also have a couple slowdowns, which I can't tell you what they are this year, because we have 4 routes that I send them on. And to keep them from chasing each other to find the clues so they don't have to think about it,
Or just follow each other around and find them all, right?
Right, that would make it too easy and not fun for the players. They'd love to figure this out on their own. So I've included a few slowdowns to, stop them from getting too close to each other, and they're also fun activities.
So you're obviously a multi-talented person, so we'll segue once more into something else that you're doing, and that is when on one of your singing trips, you found yourself in Alaska.
Ah, yes. And it's interesting. It is actually all tied together, music and entertainment. And I was booking.
It's all coming from the same soul, right? So
and the same person, right? I love to play,
Yeah.
and I love to have fun and enjoy and be positive in life, and I'd love to play with other people. And I was performing at Christmas time this past year at the Amtrak Union Station. I had called them. I like to give a little bit back, free concerts every once in a while for the communities, just who might benefit from it. And I thought about the weary travelers on Christmas Eve, and I'm like, well, let's see if they want some music. So Amtrak said, sure, and they set up a little stage area, and I was performing there on Christmas Eve, and this family of 4 came through, and they heard my voice, and they're like, cool, let's go over there. So they came over, and they said, hey, we want to sing with you. I'm like, are you any good?
Yes, can you actually sing?
Can you sing?
Yeah.
They're like, well, if you don't like us, we'll just leave. I'm like, okay. So they sang with me. They were amazing. Just these heavenly voices, perfect harmonies, just incredible. And within, they sang a quarter of the song, and then just as quickly as they came, as quickly they fled. But she stopped just long enough to turn around, scribble her email address on my fan mailing list, and say, if you're ever in Corvallis, Oregon, look me up. We want to play with you again. I'm like, okay. And then she fled, and I didn't think about it, and I thought, January and February are the booking seasons, and I thought, well, what am I going to do this year for tours? Where do I want to go? And I thought about her. I'm like, Corvallis, it's so far away. I've never been there. And I've been to California, but I've never been to Corvallis. This sounds cool. And but I couldn't decipher her email address, so I asked a friend of mine who's really good with doctor signatures, and she's like, try this. So I tried it, and we connected, and I said, hey, I'm thinking of coming out there. I have a concert actually booked in Vancouver for the BMO Vancouver Marathon in May, and I'd love to include a couple concerts down in Corvallis if you're up for it. And she's like, yeah, let's do this. So we started calling around, trying to book a concerts, and it slowly came together. May 1st, I was in Vancouver, Canada. I kicked it off with a concert up there, and then I went down to Corvallis, and then for a month thereafter, I was out in Alaska. And
because you were in the general vicinity, so why not check it out? Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Alaska, and I've never had the nerve to because I've heard it's so cold.
Not in the summer.
And it was so far away, and it was so expensive, and all those thoughts that will keep you from doing anything. I'm like, okay, now that I'm done thinking all those thoughts, now I'm going to go.
Despite all that, I'm making the decision.
Now I can figure out how I'm going to make this happen. And so I looked into booking some concerts, which I did, and that's how the tour came together. And it is called the Sky, Water, Clay, Fire, Rock, Ice Tour. I added ice after I got to Barrow. And how I got to Barrow was...
Barrow is the northernmost city in the United States.
It is. And it's cold.
I bet. It's within the Arctic Circle.
In June, it was still snowing. And the ocean was still frozen. It was just beautiful, just amazing. So I was in Fairbanks giving a concert, and I had looked online and doodled around, and I thought, look how close I am to the Arctic Circle. What's up there? And that's how I stumbled across Barrow. And so I saw the mayor had the document up front on the website looking for sponsors and donations to raise money for the recreation center up there. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know if I can donate, but what can I do? I am a singer-songwriter. I have fans online. I do social media. I tour internationally. Maybe there's a lot of rich people in my audience, which I know there are. And I just don't beg them for the money, though.
Right.
And I thought, well, maybe, if I get the word out about this through my own work, maybe someone else will take an interest and it might help these people. So I sent him an email and said, look, this is what I do. I'm happy to come out there and help you do a concert for you guys and raise a bunch of media around it and attention to hopefully get people to sponsor the building of their recreation center. And he called me back and he's like, let's do it.
Like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Let's do it.
Sure.
So I went out to Barrow, and we gave the kickoff concert. They showed me around town, and I just loved it out there. Absolutely amazing people.
And now it's a small town, right? 4,700 people, didn't you say?
Yeah, there's 4,760 people, and it's mostly natives. And they also have a collection of scientists and nurses and doctors, and then maybe a handful of politicians and some small business owners.
That's about all you need to make a town work, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. They still do whaling out there, and they use every piece of every animal that they catch for their food. So for instance, the whale, I mean, these things are huge, you know, and some are over 200 years old. And they have a belief there. They live by a certain set of traditions, spiritual traditions. And one of them is we don't hunt animals. We let them bring themselves to us. So they will go out in this sealskin boat, still the old sealskin boat, not a modern speedboat or anything. Right. Sealskin boat, handmade by them. And they go out onto the ocean and they wait for the whales. And when the whale is ready, he will come right up to the boat and wait for them to harpoon it. It's amazing.
This actually happens?
Yes, this is how they do it. It's just incredible. And then and they've learned they have to do it a certain way so the whale's mouth doesn't open and sink, collect all the water and sink to the bottom. But if they do it a certain way, the mouth stays shut, and they can tie a rope around the tail and drag them into shore and chop them up and eat them. And it'll feed the whole village for like a year. And that not only that, but all the skeleton and the baleen which filters out the fish and stuff, the artists scarf that up and do amazing artwork with that.
Scrimshaw, right? Isn't that scrimshaw is the carving of whale bones? Right.
Yeah, and the skeleton, the discs in the spine, amazing what they do with this stuff.
So you mentioned the village, but is the village separate from the town of Barrow, which has 4,760 people? Is the village a part of the town, or is this like a suburb somewhere outside of the town? Or when you're talking about catching a whale that would feed a village for a year, it doesn't feed 4,760 people for a year, or does it?
It can. These things are huge. Everyone comes with their bag, and they all get a supply of food, and they all stick it in their freezer. But they also have caribou out there. They also have moose. They also do egg hunting.
And do they pay for this?
And walrus. They have walruses out there.
Or is this just like the town comes together and says, we're going to go get a whale, and everybody just shares when it comes back?
Well, they all have a task. They all have a task to do in the whaling. So the men will go out on the boat, catch the whale. Then another group of men, and everybody helps pull them in to shore. And then they have the people that know how to carve them up and how to distribute it to the people. And then they have the women that do the cooking and all kinds of things. They make all kinds of neat delicacies with this meat. And there's something called mikiak even, where they put blood and leftover scraps of meat in these big buckets, and they put it in the sealskin boat and let it sit offshore for like, I don't know, 3 weeks or something.
Where it ferments.
And it ferments. And it's this amazing delicacy that they love. Now, I didn't get a chance to try it. I would love to try it. Maybe try it just a little bit. Yeah. Maybe next time I go there, I'll get a chance to. But.
So talk a little bit about your fundraising. We've only got a couple minutes left. So what can people do? We've put up the website on the screen. So what can people do to help out this rec center? Well,
they're looking specifically, to begin with, for an anchor sponsor. Anybody who wants to make donations or sponsors, call them now. You send them money now. There's a very short summer season because it's Alaska, and it's way up above the Arctic Circle. I mean, it's way up here, and we're down here, and Barrow is up there.
Barrow's right there.
And look how close that is to the pole.
Yeah, very close.
Very close. So they have sunlight 24 hours in the summer and darkness 24 hours in the winter. And right now it's starting to be getting up to winter again. It's August. And so they have a short window of time within which to do certain things.
And we have about 15 seconds left, so that's our short window to say what you need to say.
So they're looking for sponsors to help finish building their Pierogvik Recreation Center. They need to have a place for people to go in the wintertime to do stuff, indoor activities, because it gets to minus 60 degrees.
So check the website and contribute when you can, right? All right, Barb, it's been wonderful having you on the show. I hope you'll come back.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night at 8 on Comcast Channel 19 and see us on the web at publicperspective.tv. So until next time, thank you and good night.